Right, let's turn now to this. Home Affairs Minister Dr. Motsoaledi has welcomed the 10,000 unemployed youth with IT records and document management skills. This cohort has been recruited for the digitization of Home Affairs records. A 2.4 billion rands three-year project was announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa in the 2022 State of the Nation address. Meanwhile, a court challenge is going ahead in April against the government's plan to scrap the Zimbabwean exemption permit. We'll touch on these issues and more. Good evening, Minister, and thank you very much for your time and joining us today here on In Focus. It was exactly in 2022 when we first had this conversation about the digitization of Home Affairs and the 350 million manual records that you said are actually making your work tedious, in taking long time in processing some of these documents. Why is it taking so long to get to this point of getting the 10,000 started?
Well, if you remember, Thabo, good evening and good evening to the viewers and listeners. If you remember, this was announced by the President on the 10th of February. But Treasury told us we may not start until they give us a letter confirming that the money is definitely available. We may start because they had to move monies from elsewhere to let us start this program. Eventually, when they wrote us that letter for last year, that they are giving us 500 million rand, which eventually was confirmed in October for the next 3 years. It's only then that we're able to advertise the post. And the post of the first 200 were issued in August last year, and 136,000 people applied. We had to go through all those applications and give everybody a chance, and we had to take those who were shortlisted through an interview process. From there, we had to wait for a police file for each one of them, so it's not something that is just done overnight. So eventually, we have completed. Out of the 136,000, 2,000 were finally selected, but not all of them made it. Some of them wrote back and said, no, I actually got a permanent job somewhere. Others started querying the stipend which we are giving them, even though it's in the advert. But today, when they were there, we were expecting 1,360, but only 1,248 came. We don't know where the other 93 are. We are still looking for them. But 9 of the people we have given jobs to could not come because they were found to be having criminal records when the police records came. I mean, when the police gave the report, so we could not accept them because some of them, it was serious cases, like murder, rape, and even drug pushing. So this process of selecting, Thabo, is not just picking people because they are there. It's a very, very involving process. But eventually, we've got this group. The next group of 4,000, we have issued the advert today, and we are hoping that by the end of April, we'll be having all 10,000 of them.
Yeah.
The other reason that we have to stagger them is that not all of them are going to do the same job at the same time. Okay. There are those who are going to do preparatory work, and it will be wrong to bring everybody just to come and be a spectator when those who are doing preparatory work are doing. In other words, there are those who are doing preparation for those who will come later. And that's why it has to be staggered.
Yeah. So tell me, I gather by the kind of stringent vetting process that they would be required to go through, that they are dealing with rather sensitive documentation at Home Affairs?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. This records, Thabo, which dates back, by the way, to 1895. These are the records of since that time, who was born in South Africa and what are their details. Who got married in South Africa and to whom, and what are the further details? Who died and where, and further details. Who took a passport? Who took an ID or any other identification document? So definitely that is very sensitive information. You can't just allow anybody access to it. As I'm sitting here, Thabo, if you were to phone me and ask me about the details of your marriage or what, I will go into the National Population Register and check there. But if I want deeper details, I'll go to the record, which shows even your ancestors and everything else about you. So it can't just be anybody who has got access to those. These kids are going to spend hours with your file, the file of your family and your family tree, and making it digitized. So they are going to be knowing about you even more than I do. You understand, we can't put anybody.
How are you going to prevent inaccuracies? I mean, as you put it there, it's quite important that that detail is captured correctly. Just now, instead of a 7, you put a 1. And then I am born 100 years ago. You know, it becomes a problem. And the system says, no, but you are 150, and yet I'm still very young.
Well, they are not changing anything. They are just copying anything that is in the file, directly digitizing it. So they are not writing anything new. But the issue of making mistakes does happen in Home Affairs and is committed by both officials in Home Affairs and the members of the public themselves. That's why we've got a directorate on rectification and amendments. It's a special directorate in Home Affairs. And by the way, when you introduce this topic, you mentioned the delays in finalizing issues. Most of the delays is actually on rectifications and amendments. Why is it like that, Tabu? If you come to Home Affairs and say your date of birth is wrong, you like to correct it. You are in essence correcting your ID. You are going to have a new ID, which means you become a totally new person. If you come and say Mdluli is not spelled this way, you want to spell it differently, you are actually changing your ID. So because of that, people believe once they tell us that, we will just change immediately. No, we go to the archives and get your records. That's where problems start, because these archives, 350 million of them, are all manual. They are paper-based. So it takes us a very long time. That's why sometimes to complete rectification will take about 8 months, because we must go to this record. If we just change it here and there, Tabu, will cause complete havoc, because some people want changes on their birth date in order to change their identity, because they've got a criminal record and they want to run away from it. Some want to run away from their creditors and they want to assume a new identity altogether. So it will be important for us to understand exactly what was the original, why are we changing, before changing that, before changing anything on your records. Thabo, you know that Home Affairs doesn't give people names. We don't give people surnames. We don't dictate to them how their surnames or names are spelled. We do whatever they want. But once they've done it and it's in the records and you want to change it, that's where problem starts. Because the first question is, why does Thabo want to change this? Why originally when he came he said this and this about his surname or date of birth? Why does he suddenly want to change? And we have got to go deeper into the records.
So let's talk about that changing of record. I mean, are you at all concerned? I mean, as you know, you've encountered this situation, people counterfeiting your documents, fake ones, and so on and so forth. People have been arrested. You found a whole workshop that was manufacturing South African passports. You are now bringing some young people in here. Largely, very little money is being given to them. It's a stipend. You know, there are people who would want to take advantage maybe of the situation and try and corrupt these young people. I'm not saying they will agree, but I'm just saying, how will you make sure that people don't get into the system and change documents and change details that they shouldn't be changing?
There are supervisors, Thabo. Coincidentally, there's one young person who asked me a similar question you were asking me. He said, how are you going to help us to hold our hearts back so that we don't get tempted?
That's right.
When people want to bribe us. And I told him, Thabo, this is my answer to him. I said, we don't have enough policemen in the world to arrest people's hearts. They only arrest criminals. To arrest your heart, you have got to do it yourself, Thabo. It's me who must tell my heart that I must not get tempted to get into corruption because I'll be arrested. And I give the example of these 9 colleagues of theirs who should have joined them. Many of them were found to be having these cases of drug pushing, etc. Actually, one of them, Thabo, the police were looking for him. They didn't know where he was until he applied for this job, and that's how they left him, because he applied to us, and meaning he emerged from wherever he's hiding. So I warned them about such things, that you'll get tempted, but we are arresting you. And I gave them a list of Home Affairs officials who have been arrested and also dismissed from work. But be that as it may, we have got supervisors, we have got mechanisms, we have got quality control. We don't just allow one young person to do it and go away with it. And that's why they have to come for training. Yeah. As I was addressing them today, they are all in Gauteng, in Johannesburg, for training. But they are all going to go away back to their provinces after this training program. Okay. And part of the curriculum is ethics. They are going to be taught about ethics. But there is no amount of teaching of ethics, Thabo, that can stop you from being corrupt if you choose to be like that.
Minister, let's talk to this issue now. In April, of course, you're heading back to court around this question of the Zimbabwean permits. Has the position of government changed around the continuation of this particular dispensation? Initially, you had said no further than 2021. They took you to court and challenged you. You said, okay, grace period, 12 months, December 2022. Again, you were challenged, and you've now extended it to June 2023. Is that it?
No, Thabo, nothing has changed. And by the way, let me correct you. We didn't change anything because we're being challenged. When we moved from December 2022 to June 2023, it was not because of any challenge. It was because I've appointed a special team of experts headed by the former Director General in the Presidency, Dr. Cassius Lubisi. When they went through what is needed and the processes, they immediately wrote me a letter and advised me to move the date because there's a lot of work. That is the reason why we moved the date, not because anybody is challenging anything. We still stand by the decision, and if there is any challenge, we'll meet in court.
The last time you were saying you know who these people are because, of course, they are holding this permit. They are in the system. You've sent them letters. You've notified them. Did you see any difference in terms of the uptake and those who are responding?
Oh, yes, definitely. We are seeing it, but I don't have figures now. But we are seeing it. It's because, Thabo, I think a number of people were misled that, look, this case is going to be thrown out of court. Just they put the decision is going to be thrown out. You don't have to do anything. It is now dawning to many people that it might not be like that, because as I'm sitting here, and you as you are sitting here and there, nobody knows exactly what a court of law decides. I'm sure you are experienced with that. So it will be taking chances, stretching things too much to decide beforehand that I'm going to court and I'm going to win. I think nobody knows that. We are all hopeful. So it's better that people do as we say, as we advise them, in order to stand themselves in good stead in case something else in court comes out, something else other than what they are hoping for.
People in court were rather emotional, saying, how can I be in a country where I'm expected, where I came as a minor, to now just pack my bags and go? I mean, do you have a direct response for those people, some of them who are in our universities, probably even enrolled even this year?
Thabo, I've repeated this many times, but I won't stop repeating it. We never gave any instruction that anybody needs to pack and go away. What we said is you can no longer stay here under a temporary arrangement which becomes temporary forever. We have got a large number of permits and visas in South Africa. In fact, we don't think there's any other country. Nobody showed me a country that has got as many visas and permits as South Africa. We've got 17 of them, and they are all in the Immigration Act. All we said is go to apply through one of those acts, normalize and regularize your stay through them, not through this temporary arrangement. Because it can't be temporary forever. You can't put something and say it's temporary and you let it go on forever. It can't work that way. And it's actually causing us problems. Some of them will actually take us to court if we don't change this situation. And I'll tell you why. When people were given ZEPs, they were given certain conditions. One of the conditions was that you can't apply for regular visas and permits. Now, let me give you an example. In terms of South African law, when you get married to a South African, you have got the right to apply for permanent residency and eventually for naturalization. But in terms of the ZEP, one of the conditions is that you can't apply for anything else. Somebody will wake up and go to court and say, but I'm married here and I'm being stopped from benefiting from my marriage. And then what am I going to say? Some will say, look, I came here via the Zimbabwe exemption permit. I've now acquired a scarce skill. And I know there are scarce skill visas that are being issued to other people. And he gets told that no, but the conditions were that you don't apply for anything else. So that is the result of staying with a temporary situation on a permanent basis. That's all we said. The stories about people saying, I came here as a youngster and being sent away and all that is their own stories, Thabo. And at any rate, one of the lies that you people are being told, and you seem to believe it, is that people are saying they know no other home except South Africa. But we have got many people who go home, just like I do. I come from Limpopo in Skukuni. I'm here in Gauteng, in Pretoria. Christmas, Good Friday, etc. I go home. I become a Guduga. There are many Zimbabweans who do the same thing. And we see them at the borders crossing in and out. But then they come to you here and say, no, I came here as a youngster. I don't have any other home. It's not true. You can even go to the Department of Health and see quite a number of Zimbabweans who are on ZEP. When they pass on, the bodies get transported to be buried back home in Zimbabwe because people still have homes there. So that's the situation we know. At any rate, as you said, the matter is going to court. We'll hear what the judge says about all this information.
Let's leave it there for tonight. Minister, appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on. Dr. Motsoaledi, Minister of Home Affairs.